Well, hello there and welcome back. My name is Michelle, and today we're going to talk about some ENFJs. I'm really glad that you're here because I have a lot of really great things to talk about with the ENFJ personality type, which is probably one of the most universally well liked personality types. And today we're going to talk about why. What makes them awesome? Why are they such great people? Now, I definitely have a whole series for many reasons because I do believe that each person should be proud of their type. And in this video, we're going to talk about why the ENFJ should be proud. Does this make them better than other people? No. Just because they're more universally well liked doesn't mean that they are better in any way. There are plenty of people who really don't like ENFJs. So let's not try to make any stereotypes or sweeping statements about whether or not they are the best type or a good type. You can like them all you want, but that is your personal preference. But alas, I digress. Let's go ahead and dive in to what makes the ENFJ awesome. The first thing that we need to do is break down the cognitive functions of an ENFJ. So, the ENFJ's cognitive functional stack goes as follows. First, they lead with extroverted feeling. Then they have introverted intuition, extroverted sensing, and finally introverted thinking. These cognitive functions play together in a way that is specific to the ENFJ, so let's go ahead and talk about what that way is. So first, let's start with extroverted feeling. Extroverted feeling is the ENFJ's main cognitive function. It is the cognitive function that is like water. It is what they eat, sleep, and breathe. They literally can't turn this off and are often just so involved with this that they often can't even see it in themselves. And that is the extroverted feeling realm of what do other people care about? That is what they are constantly worried about, concerned about, and pretty good at picking up from other people. Extroverted feeling allows them to quickly identify what other people care about and to try to figure out what the group around them cares about. Something that you'll see a lot from ENFJs is where they try to figure out what everyone else wants and try to find something that as many people as possible will like, and they can all do that together. This is very, very common, so much so that you might even see ENFJs who are unable to assert their own opinion because they don't want their opinion to take away from what other people want. If they think that there's a potential for their own opinion to go against what the group wants, a lot of times they'll leave that alone, unless they believe it is for the best of the group overall, despite those feelings. But that's pretty rare because most ENFJs think that what other people care about and their emotions are what is ultimately important. There's a little bit of a misconception about extroverted feeling, about how it's about feelings and emotions, which it's not really. It's more so about values and what people care about. So when people say values, you might think that values are like, maybe you shouldn't kill another person, but values in this case are just ultimately what other people care about. Not really much to do with emotion. They're not going to be necessarily better at reading emotion, but they might be more aware of other people's emotions. They might be more aware of what makes people feel certain ways and try to affect that. They do often tend to affect the emotional atmosphere rather intentionally, which kind of plays into some of their other cognitive functions. So we'll go ahead and talk about those. With that second place, introverted intuition, these ENFJs are thinking about where is what's happening right now going to end up in the future. And because of that with their value-centricness, their external value-centric nature, they use their introverted intuition to figure out how can we make this optimized? How can we make this the best possible? How can we lead this to the future in a way that is most beneficial for everyone? So you will often find ENFJs, and there's a reason why this stereotype exists, trying to push forward for other people, trying to make some kind of social impact because they want to incorporate what people value. And if they think that that's wrong and want to change that, they will. So they use what they see other people care about, or maybe they think other people should care about, and they use their introverted intuition to figure out how to make that happen. How can we improve this over the long term? How can we take where we are right now and get to this ultimate idealized version of the future? ENFJs are constantly thinking that, especially with context to what other people care about. This is why, they do often tend to be SJWs for that reason, because they're thinking about the future, because they're thinking about not only their future, but the big picture future of humanity. That is one of their biggest concerns, is the big picture future of humanity as a whole. And they're constantly trying to figure out ways that they can approach that. Now, am I saying that all ENFJs are thinking about the world? No, they might be thinking about the group as a whole. So they might be thinking about, maybe the entire workplace, or maybe the entire family, or whatever it is that they care about, maybe their group of friends, whatever. They're thinking about what's ultimately the best long term for this other group of people, for this entire group of people, which is why it tends to bleed out to the world and society. Not always, but quite often. And then they have that extroverted sensing in the third slot. This means that they're relatively great, actually great at acting in the moment and taking real-time opportunities. With that extroverted sensing, they are very acutely aware of what's happening right now and how they can affect what's happening right now. And because they've spent so much time and energy thinking about the long-term future, they can then, in the moment, take action when needed in order to get to that ultimate future. They're very good at recognizing those opportunities and taking advantage of them, because that is something that they really care about. It's not just about idealizing a future, it's about making that future happen for the ENFJs, and their extroverted sensing is what allows them to do that. There is a word that is often used to describe extroverted sensing, and that is the word force. And that doesn't necessarily mean beating people over the face with a bat or something. It means taking advantage of the moment, being forceful, being pushy with your will. That doesn't come off super in your face with an ENFJ as it might with an ESTP, for example. However, they are very capable of taking control of a situation and making sure that the outcome is good. They often are planners, like event planners, that kind of stuff, for a reason. And that's because those kinds of things play to them. What doesn't often get talked about with an ENFJ, and what I think is a wonderful strength of the ENFJ, that is their last slot, introverted thinking. Now, the reason that it's often downplayed is because there are a lot of ENFJs out there who haven't developed their introverted thinking, and so it can be a little bit immature and based off emotions. However, that is not the case for probably most ENFJs. Most ENFJs recognize that that is a lower weakness, and they work on it just as any person with their fourth function. Most of us recognize it relatively early and want to start working on it, because nobody likes having weaknesses, all right? We all want to be strong and amazing, all right? Unless you really, I can't imagine a person that doesn't want to be strong and amazing unless they really believe that they can't. But in that case, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. The ENFJs with their fourth slot introverted thinking can really be astute at understanding how things work, understanding how society works, how people work. And yes, their introverted thinking does really only come into play when there's something they really care about or other people really care about. That's when they tend to develop their introverted thinking. Maybe not necessarily about random things that have no purpose, because for an ENFJ, they really need to care in order to learn about it, in order to figure out how it works. That's why they're really good about figuring out how people work in a group, how these group dynamics are going to play out, how society works, all these things. That is what their focus tends to be. That is the trend. It is not an absolute. There are obviously exceptions to every rule. But with ENFJs, these tend to be pretty common. There's a reason why stereotypes exist, and that's because a lot of times these things do happen with a lot of different people. So when they have figured out how things work, especially with regards to what other people care about and how they can impact what other people care about. They're able to use their introverted intuition and their extroverted sensing to figure out when and how to act in order to optimize that perfect outcome, all revolving around that extroverted feeling of what other people care about and how they can impact what other people care about. You often see these stereotypes of ENFJs being so willing to just bend over backwards for everyone and doing everything for other people and not wanting to offend other people. That's not necessarily the case. Extroverted feeling doesn't necessarily not want to offend people. It is focused on what other people care about, not necessarily about, accommodating that. They're not always necessarily trying to accommodate what other people care about. They are just incredibly aware and they focus a lot of their energy on figuring out what other people care about and figuring out how they can impact what other people care about. That's just, their thing. But I really love ENFJs. I mean, there's a reason why we're kind of synergistic together, because we tend to have similar goals and similar dreams and hopes for humanity, and we can be really activated by being around each other. I used to work with an ENFJ, and when we would be in the same room together, we would talk about how we want things to play out in the future. The crazy thing being, though, that the ENFJ was able to figure out plans to actually make it happen that really relied a lot about what other people care about. Whereas for me, it's much more so, what's the most effective way to get them to change what they're doing? Oh, you take away everything that makes it difficult and just make it easier. I just want to make things easier because then people are more likely to do it. But she would actually, not necessarily do that. She would think about the long term. She says, okay, well, it needs to be hard now so that in the future it's easy. And her ability to have forethought like that and to be able to implement things is really inspiring for somebody like me, and I mean, clearly for a lot of people on the internet, because the ENFJ is probably one of the most universally well-liked personality types for many reasons. And I hope that this video helped clarify some of those reasons and help talk about the true cognitive functions behind it, not just the stereotypes about ENFJs. ENFJs can be a wide variety of people with a wide variety of passions, but ultimately, when you boil it down, they share these cognitive functions, which means they're gonna share some traits. And if you're an ENFJ, do you agree with everything that I said? Is there anything that I said that you want to maybe tweak the wording of, clarify, change a little bit about what I said, or did I capture the essence of you? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you're not an ENFJ, do you know ENFJs and does this match them? Or does this make you maybe want to hang out with some more ENFJs? If you are an ENFJ, or any type really, please join the Discord down below. I want more ENFJs. I want us to be able to talk to more ENFJs and really learn more about what it is like to be an ENFJ. But with that, I want to thank you guys so much for watching today. It is a pleasure to do this series. We're so close to almost done, just a few more types to go, and that series will be completed and checked off, and we can move on to other series. But thank you again so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, and again, join the Discord. Check it out. Check me out on Patreon if you want to support my channel and what I'm doing here. And otherwise, if you made it all the way through to the end, regardless of what you do, I really hope that you have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic day. Bye!